By the time Metroid Prime 4 released, it had been 18 years since Prime 3 came out, and 8 years have passed since the announcement in 2017. This is easily the longest time I've waited for a game to release, and I'm about to find out whether Prime 4 can live up to its reputation by fully completing Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Completing Metroid Prime 4 means filling out the entire gallery. To do this, you need to collect all items like the missiles or energy tanks, scan every creature and research log, beat the game on normal and hard mode, and last but not least, collect every single green crystal. The game starts out with one of the best opening cutscenes in a Metroid game, which makes me wonder, why haven't we been able to fly around in Samus's gunship? I am playing on Switch 1 hardware because of reasons, but it still looks really good and detailed. Little did I know that during this tutorial section, I made a huge mistake that costed me hours of progress to be wasted. At the end there's a boss fight with a space pirate fused with a Metroid, and so far the game is really enjoyable. During the battle against the main villain Sylax, an artifact activates and teleports Samus to an unknown planet. There she meets one of the natives who gives her a mission to preserve their knowledge and to collect 5 keys. We also get a new psychic ability, which was kind of a shame because we only got to play as Samus's iconic orange and green suit for a little while. I also noticed that the visor sound effect changes once you get the psychic upgrade. After that, we arrive at the first world, Fury Green, which is visually stunning and one of the best looking sections of the game. You immediately encounter a wealth of creatures and lore pieces to scan, as well as a variety of enemies to battle. However, this excitement is tempered by an unexpected surprise. This is where we meet the NPC character, Miles Mackenzie. Although it's not the first time a human character has spoken in a Metroid game, he feels distinctly out of place. His loud, jovial, and cheerful demeanor contrasts sharply with the game's traditional atmosphere of exploration and solitude.
Poor Samus. I'm good. I'm okay.
Fortunately, not long after, you are separated with Mackenzie in this hub-like area, but unfortunately, he can still contact you throughout the entire game.
Booyah! Long-range comms are back online.
You cannot outrun Miles Mackenzie.
You also gain a new ability, the Control Beam, which is utilized for both puzzles and combat. While I wish the beam could travel faster, I think it's an interesting ability unique to this game. Fury Green is not an extensive section. After exploring a bit more and defeating the boss, the area is over in roughly an hour. The next area is a controversial one, the desert called Soul Valley, but you don't get to explore this section yet. The actual next area is Vault Forge. From here the game starts feeling like a tutorial. This area is much larger and takes multiple hours to beat. Your main objective here is to restore power to the 3 towers and build the Viola. The enemies in Vault Forge turn from organic ones to robotic ones, and you also get to fight the first of 4 battles against Sylax. One notable aspect I notice around this section is how reactive Samus is to her surroundings. Whenever she takes damage or there is an environmental effect, she reacts to almost all of them in some way. Like flinching when she gets interrupted while shooting, or walking into a laser beam, falling into lava, shielding her face during a blizzard, even when she takes shots from the back. She reacts to anything aside from NPCs talking to her. Samus doesn't speak a single word in this game.
Samus, do you copy?
Anyway, after the Viola is built, Samus gets a suit upgrade that turns into the Viola suit, and unlocks the boss fight against a mechanical sphere. She also needs to complete 3 trials using the Viola. It's kinda funny that Samus needs to take a driving test to use the Viola outside of Vault Forge. Now that Samus has acquired the Viola, she can freely explore the vast, barren desert, but I will talk about this area in more detail later. The next destination is Ice Belt, which becomes accessible after obtaining the Fire Shot upgrade. In my opinion, Ice Belt stands out as the best section of the game. The atmosphere shifts and evokes the sense of isolation reminiscent of traditional Metroid games. The environmental storytelling is far more compelling, with lore snippets revealing how the native inhabitants experimented on themselves, ultimately leading to their near extinction. This is also the only area that has a unique transformation in scenery halfway through when you reactivate the generators. Additionally, you encounter the second NPC in this facility, who is much less chatty and annoying than Mackenzie. To no one's surprise, the boss in Icebelt is ice-themed. And with a new type of arm cannon, the battles become a bit more interesting than previous boss fights. The fourth area is Flare Poo, but before that we need to return to Vault Forge to upgrade the Viola. Once the Viola is upgraded and the Ice Shot is obtained, Samus can now traverse the lava and access Flare Poo. When I got here, I was honestly a bit disappointed. The majority of the previous two areas, Vault Forge and Icebelt, take place indoors, and that is the same case for Flare Poo. All three of these areas feel similar aside from the tint of color. On the other hand, the game does get more challenging, and I couldn't just rush through enemies anymore. Two new NPCs are also introduced, and you have to keep an eye on their HP. The boss of Flare Poo, unlike previous ones, has two phases. First you have to stun it with the Viola, before you can start popping its blue pimples. The fifth and final area with a key is Great Mines. Similar to the previous areas, we need to do a bit more backtracking to access it. Once again we return to Vault Forge to acquire the Thunder Shot. Samus has her third encounter with Sylax, and I think the fights against him are the best in the game. The third encounter specifically, I really enjoy using the grapple beam to swing around and avoid his attacks. After that we return to Icebelt to get the Psychic Spider Ball power up, as well as encounter the last NPC character, who is a robot. Great Mines is a weird area. On one hand, I like that it's distinctly different compared to the other areas, with an extra gimmick that if you use your missiles to attack, it will alert more enemies. On the other hand, there are pointless scenes where every single NPC character aside from Mackenzie seemingly sacrifice themselves to save Samus, only for them to reappear like nothing happened. Now that all the keys are collected, there isn't a better time to finally talk about the desert, because our next mission is to collect robot parts scattered somewhere around this area. A lot of people say that there is nothing to do in the desert, but that is simply not true. Look at how many green crystals you can collect. This is mandatory, by the way. I did not say it was fun. After you collect enough green crystals, you can return back to the hub area to store these green crystals in an altar, which will give you the memory through and a suit upgrade turning into the legacy suit. I prefer the design of the Viola suit slightly more, but I do like that the legacy suit resembles a flower, specifically the petals on the back of Samus's head. You even get a new ability that will give you a shield if you consume 35 missile ammo. The desert just feels unnecessary. While the movement and controls of the Viola are not bad, the desert doesn't provide any meaningful activities. Sure, there are hidden items and shrines to upgrade your arm cannon, but these diversions could exist in any environment. Ultimately, it feels like the desert only functions to extend the game's length without adding any substantial value. Back to the robot parts. After you locate all of them and defeat this boss while riding the Viola, which Samus explodes from the inside, Samus is really brutal at times. You can now access the final boss area. With all the mandatory objectives done, it's time to collect every item and scan every creature and object that needs to be scanned. When it comes to the items like the missiles or energy tank, there's nothing really much to say. Each area have these broken drones which can be activated using the Thunder Shot, and it will reveal every item you have yet to obtain. The drones are not really hard to find, just make sure you mark them on the map whenever you find them. Scanning, on the other hand, has the potential to mess up your entire playthrough. There are three main things you need to look out for: enemy scans, lore scans, and technology scans. The game won't tell you what you're missing, and there are numerous ones you could miss forever on this playthrough. Technology should be easy, and there's nothing missable for lore. But when it comes to enemy scans, you need to be careful. If you forget to scan the boss, you will never see it again, and there are some regular enemies that won't appear after a certain point, like the space pirates. Literally the first enemy you fight in the game. I got right to the very end, wondering what this unscanned enemy could be, just to realize that space pirates don't appear after the prologue. So, if you want a 100% scan rate on your first playthrough, Make sure to get the scanner out whenever you see anything that is new, collecting every single green crystal. The majority of green crystals are located in the desert, with one area in Fury Green and multiple in each shrine. The rest are scattered all around the desert. I won't bore you explaining how monotonous this can be, especially when enemies randomly appear to get in your way. The saving grace is that the legacy suit will indicate which direction the remaining crystals are. All this to fill an extra slot in the gallery. Now that is all done, the last thing to do is finish the game. Remember the robot parts that needed to be collected? Well, I hope you're not expecting to ride it, because it immediately breaks down after a cutscene. The final area itself is not very interesting since it's just a narrow path to the boss arena. The final boss is Silex, and like I mentioned before, I think the fights against him are the best in the game. This is easily the longest fight, having 3 phases. The first phase in itself has 3 mini phases against the elemental types. The second phase is a one-on-one battle inside a wormhole, which reminds me of the battle against Ridley in Prime 3. And the third phase is another one-on-one battle with Silex. After you defeat him, Samus uses the teleporter to return home, but Silex is not completely defeated. The 5 NPC characters sacrifice themselves, this time for Rio, to buy Samus some time to escape. I tested what would happen here if I didn't press any button, and the teleporter explodes and you have to start the battle again from the second phase. It took me roughly 14 hours to beat the game. In the epilogue, Samus plans for Memory Seed to preserve the knowledge of the aliens, but the game isn't completed yet because hard mode is now unlocked. Of course, I didn't get everything on the first attempt, so I had to do that on hard mode. Even on hard mode, I wouldn't consider Prime 4 a hard game, but if you're not careful, your HP would deplete really fast. Enemies are much spongier, which gets slightly annoying, especially the boss fight in the Great Mines. Not only does it have a ton of HP, but it also moves around like Spider-Man. Since it was my second time playing the game, I got to the end a few hours faster, which took me roughly 12 hours, excluding the time I died. Like all Prime games, if you get 100% on the save data, you get to see the secret ending where Samus takes off her helmet. Nothing else will change during the epilogue, but you will be able to watch an extended flashback scene showing why Silex hates Samus. Overall, I enjoyed Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Though I still think this is a great game, it's probably the worst one in the Prime series. Other than the NPCs and desert area, the story also feels like it's there to just set up for a sequel. Hopefully the sales are good enough to make one. Thank you for watching it this far in the video. If you liked it, please give a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again in another video.